Walk through any American neighborhood on a weeknight in 1942, and something stops you the moment you look at it. The houses go dark early. By 9, by 10 at the latest, the windows have gone black. The radio program has ended. There is no glow from inside. The street is quiet in a way that no American street has been quiet since. In 1942, 84% of American adults slept at least 7 hours every night. Today, only 59% do. In 1942, just 3% of Americans reported sleeping 5 hours or less. Today, that number is 20%. The average American has lost more than a full hour of sleep per night since then. Not a few minutes. An entire hour of recovery, of restoration, of the biological reset your body was built to need. You have been told this is your fault, that you lack discipline, that you scroll too long, watch too much, do not try hard enough to get to bed at a reasonable hour. That is not the truth. Your sleep was taken from you. From you, one invention, one broadcast network, and one glowing screen at a time. The destruction of American sleep was not a personal failure. It was an engineered outcome built into the physical environment of modern life, beginning with a single light bulb tested in Menlo Park, New Jersey, on October 21st, 1879. In this video, we're going to show you exactly how the electric light, the television set, and the smartphone each dismantled a different layer of your sleep, and why the system that replaced it has every incentive to keep you awake. It begins with one man, one invention, and one very dangerous idea about what human beings were for. Before Edison, darkness governed the human schedule. Not a poetic idea, but a physical reality. Without reliable artificial light, life contracted after sundown. You could sit by a fire. You could hold a candle. But the darkness imposed a limit, and that limit had protected human sleep for as long as humans had existed. What researchers have found in the historical record is that the sleep our ancestors got looked nothing like what we think of as normal today. Virginia Tech historian Roger E. Kirk spent years studying pre-industrial sleep patterns and documented hundreds of references across cultures to something called segmented sleep, 2 separate periods of rest lasting roughly 4 hours each, separated by an hour or two of quiet wakefulness in the middle of the night. People use that interval to pray, to reflect, to speak quietly with a spouse. It was not insomnia. It was the natural human relationship with darkness, and it disappeared not because we chose to sleep differently, but because something eliminated the conditions that made it possible. That something was tested for the first time on October 21st, 1879, in a New Jersey laboratory. Edison's practical incandescent bulb was not the first attempt at artificial light, but it was the first that was affordable, reliable, and bright enough to actually override human biology. Before that moment, all artificial light in use across the entire world combined barely matched the intensity of a single modern street lamp. After that moment, the night was open for business. But Edison didn't just invent a product. He invented a philosophy. In an 1889 interview with Scientific American, he said flat out that sleep was a criminal waste of time. He held job interviews at 4 a.m. He required employees to work through the night. He publicly bragged about sleeping just 4 hours and quietly kept napping cots installed throughout his laboratory. Sleep researchers estimate that the transition to artificial light alone stripped modern Americans of 1 to 2 hours of sleep per night compared to pre-industrial patterns. Edison didn't lose sleep over that. He considered it the point. You didn't choose to stop sleeping according to your biology. Your biology was overridden. The moment the night became usable, the cultural pressure to use it followed, and rest became something you had to justify, fight for, and defend it against a world that had decided wakefulness was a virtue. But the light bulb only opened the door. What walked through it was something far more powerful. In 1946, roughly 20,000 American households owned a television. By 1952, that number was 15.3 million. By 1960, There were more television sets in America than there were homes. No technology in the history of the country had penetrated the household faster. The television did not just change entertainment, it reorganized when Americans sleep. Researchers studying the transition in the 1950s found something measurable almost immediately. Children in television households went to bed a full half hour later, on average, than children without one. That was before programming even extended past 9 p.m. Children were being kept up not because their parents had failed them, but because the screen in the living room was still on and still interesting, and nobody had made a rule about when it had to stop. Then, NBC made it worse on purpose. In 1954, the network launched The Tonight Show, deliberately engineered programming for the hours that had previously belonged to sleep. The late-night format was not an accident. It was a business decision. The later you kept people awake, the more commercials they watched. In 1980, CNN launched as the first 24-hour cable news network, and the last natural stopping point in the broadcast day was eliminated entirely. There had always been a moment, visible to anyone who stayed up too late in the 1950s, when the station played the national anthem, the screen cut to static, and the silence told you it was time to go to bed. That moment was a gift, even if no one recognized it as one. It was a built-in signal that the day was over. The 24-hour news cycle erased it. The numbers track this precisely. In 1942, 59% of Americans slept 8 or more hours per night. By 1990, 5 decades after the television entered the American home, that number had collapsed to 27%. Nobody decided to sleep less. The entertainment simply extended. One episode, one late show, one more segment at a time. The structure that had once enforced bedtime was dismantled and replaced with content engineered to hold your attention for exactly one more minute. Your late nights were not a choice. They were a broadcast schedule. And then in the summer of 2007, something arrived that made the television look quaint. Every disruption to American sleep before 2007 had one limitation. It required you to be in a specific room, in front of a specific device. The television could not follow you to bed. The smartphone solved that problem. Apple released the first iPhone on June 29, 2007. Within 5 years, the average American's daily smartphone use had nearly doubled. By 2013, 9 out of 10 Americans between the ages of 13 and 64 were using screens in the hour before sleep, not occasionally, every single night. But the smartphone didn't just bring entertainment into the bedroom. It brought light, a specific, targeted, and biologically potent kind of light. The short wavelengths emitted by LED screens, the same blue spectrum your brain uses to register the morning sun, directly suppress melatonin, the hormone your body produces to signal that it's time to sleep. Research from Penn State found that 2 hours of LED screen exposure before bed produced a 55% reduction in melatonin levels and delayed sleep onset by 1.5 hours compared to reading a physical book under low light. Your phone was telling your brain it was noon, at midnight, every night. This was not a side effect that caught the industry by surprise. The behavioral scientists and attention engineers designing these platforms understood exactly what kept people scrolling. Infinite scroll, autoplay, notification design, variable reward. Every feature was optimized to eliminate the natural moment when a person might stop, put the device down, and sleep. The platform earns more revenue the longer you stay awake. Your exhaustion is not a bug. It is a business model. The accumulation is now catastrophic. Rand. Europe found that sleep deprivation cost the American economy up to $411 billion per year in lost productivity and increased mortality. Americans who sleep fewer than 6 hours per night carry a 13% higher mortality risk than those sleeping 7 to 9 hours. The CDC has declared insufficient sleep a public health epidemic. In 1942, just 11% of Americans slept fewer than 7 hours per night. Today, 40% do. That is not a trend. That is a transformation of the conditions of human life, and none of it was your fault. So what was actually taken from you? We didn't choose this. We didn't wake up one morning and decide that sleep was less important than it used to be. It was dismantled around us, one layer at a time, one decade at a time, so gradually that we blamed ourselves for the loss before we ever stopped to ask who built the world that made sleep so hard. The darkness was eliminated. The broadcast schedule colonized the night. Then a device arrived that could follow you into the bedroom, emit light calibrated to override your melatonin, and deploy the full resources of behavioral science to keep you from putting it down. Your ancient sleep biology, shaped by millions of years of following the sun, was outmatched, not by your weakness, by engineering. Edison called rest a criminal waste of time. Silicon Valley built a trillion-dollar empire on the same conviction. The difference is that Silicon Valley was quieter about it. What we lost wasn't just hours. We lost the dark. We lost the silence. We lost the dream, and not in a poetic sense. We lost the actual neurological process by which the mind repairs what the day breaks, consolidates what it learned, and comes back the next morning capable of being human. Sleep deprivation isn't just tiredness. It is the slow erosion of everything sleep was protecting. This didn't have to happen. It was chosen. One patent, one broadcast deal, one product launch at a time, by people who decided that your wakefulness was worth more than your health. And the most honest question left to ask is this: who profits from your exhaustion?